disappear our culture and heritage. When, thank you. Oh, even I hear me better. One of these traditions that survived despite all the efforts to really bury us and bury our traditions. When I was reading an article, and they continue to call it the conquest of our land and the discovery. And make no mistake about this was not a conquest, and it wasn't a discovery. We were there thousands of years before they landed on our land, and we were a thriving community full of a wealth of knowledge. We had very precise knowledge, as seen by the many structures that survived all of these years. And you know, we had communities. In one of my latest tours through the pyramids, I like to make those tours every single time I go, because you learn something. Despite being from Mexico, and you will think I knew it all, right? You do learn something. And our community had a sewage system, and they had toilets that actually, with the natural flow of the water, the way they built it, we were flushing toilets before they came to our world. And they just never cared to look and mind that gap and see what we had and what they had, and how we could have enriched both cultures instead of trying to kill one and implement the other. So thank you for allowing me to be here and show some of those gaps in what could have happened. So the Dia de los Muertos is one of our most sacred traditions, like I said, and continues to survive today. And thankfully, thankful to many media coverage and people going to our celebrations, we were able to demystify it a little bit, because when I first came to this country, and I used to say, I work in the school system, and I used to say, we should do Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead, and most people will push back, and it is a misunderstood tradition, and they were like, no, this just sounds too dark, it sounds like you're honoring the devil. And I was like, nobody said the word devil, nobody says Satan, we said the dead. Don't good people die? That's what I thought. So if we could move on. So the celebration, it is believed, and I have pictures, most of my pictures are of actual altars of my different trips to Mexico. And actually our country comes alive with colors. Throughout the whole country, starting now, they're starting to put all the things that make us aware that we are entering a sacred season. And it is believed that beginning in October, when we start seeing the marigolds blossom, and you see that gold color, and it grows wild in some parts of Mexico, and so it just starts to grow. Another thing happens also. The monarch butterflies start arriving from their journey from Canada. And it is believed that this tapestry of colors that covers a region, it is believed that it is highlighting the way for the souls to come in. It's basically decorating, it's rolling the beautiful carpet of colors. Butterflies and marigolds. The monarch butterfly and the marigold sort of share the same color pattern if you look at it. So it is believed that they're coloring and showing the way for our beloved souls to come back in November. So we start decorating our homes, and what you can continue. We start decorating our homes with pictures of our beloved ones that have gone, and things that they liked also. We put their favorite meals, clothing. If it's a child, we put their favorite toys. So when they come to us, we're able to celebrate together. And despite the name, the Day of the Dead, it is not a celebration of death. It is a celebration of life. In my culture, we do believe that dying is just a part of life. And if you know anything about Mexico, you do know that we celebrate everything. So, why wouldn't we celebrate somebody transitioning to the other, to the afterlife? We're not losing them, we're losing their physical body, but our body changes and ages, and we get sick, and eventually that body has to go somewhere. So once the soul is gone, we no longer, age, and we have this, we're there forever. And it is believed that as long as you are remembered, you will not die. That's when true death happens. When you no longer have anybody in this world that remembers you, that's when you have died. So it is always my intent, and I tell my grandchildren, they're in the back, I always tell them, when I die, celebrate. Continue to celebrate my birthday. Continue to celebrate that I was here with you, and I will not die for as long as you remember me. So, it is the altar. Basically, it is something sacred, and we put everything there for our families. And then on November 1st and 2nd, the celebration takes place in the cemeteries. And so we go, and that is when the souls, the heavens open, and our souls come back, and we are able to eat the meals that they loved, drink what they drank, play with their toys, look at their clothes, anything that they had. And so it is a celebration. It is a beautiful family celebration. There is nothing dark about this, and this is something where multi-generations share. And it is our way of making sure that our younger children, my grandchildren never met my grandparents. So if they hear stories about it, then my grandparents are alive for as long as somebody can tell their stories. And we also have, because we like to have fun on everything, we also have what we call literary calaveras or skulls. And this is our newspapers throughout the country. We have very skilled writers, and we're making fun of, when death comes and picks me up, and we call her La Catrina. So our newspapers published throughout the country these calaveras, and they basically said, well, Lucy was a very good-looking lady, and then one day the Catrina came and picked her up, and then they went partying together, or something funny like that. It has to rhyme, so there's a skill to it, but they published the best. And so this is something that we as children learn in school, because it helps with the creative process, and it also, those calaveras are meant for people who are alive. So you're basically, talking about anyone here, whatever your talent is, and how you're going to use it when the calavera comes for you. And so you see these things. The next slide, the famous Catrinas. It is identified with the celebration because we had a very skilled cartoonist, and the Catrina basically it is another way of make fun of people. Because, as you know, our culture was influenced a lot by Spaniards and French people. So these French people, they thought they were superior than the mestizos, the mixed race, and then the indigenous people. There was a very clear caste system. So it was the indigenous people who were at the lowest. Then it was us, the mixed people were like, some were right above that, and then we had the Spaniards, and then we had the French, and all of those people that kept coming, and somehow we kept going to the bottom. Weird, right? In your own land? It was like, what the heck? What are you talking about? So these French people, they used to be very dressy because they dressed different than we did. Our clothes are very colorful and comfortable. And if you dress like that, it's just like your evening gala gowns and then the hat and everything. So Posada said, well, everybody dies, poor, rich, whether you're indigenous, the middle, or whatever. So he basically drew a very good-looking lady, and then he made her into a skull, and it became the Catrina because that's what they used to be called. So it's a good-looking lady, and that's death. So so it became a tradition, and that's how that was born. So if you see that in our parades now, so in short, Dia de los Muertos is a collage of traditions because it maintains the purest of the traditional intent, which was very sacred and personal and done at the gravesite. But in order to make it survive, we really did have to include the new religion. We did have to include Catholicism into it, and we also had to welcome everybody because it was either die or adjust. And so many of our traditions have adjusted just to be able to survive. Thankfully, because of the popularism that has gotten, it's going back to being a little bit more traditional in some places. Like she said, she visited Pascuaro. It's one of the most traditional places where you will witness a celebration of Dia de los Muertos. I am from that state, and actually last year they closed it to tourists because it became so popular, everybody wants to go experience it, forgetting that this is a sacred, private, intimate celebration between the people living and those that left us. So in the island of Jalisco, where it's one of the most traditional celebrations, they closed that for the tourists last season because they needed to make sure that the families that need this celebration were able to have it. So, getting it popular, it's a double-edged sword because then you're faced with not allowing the people that live there to actually have that celebration. So that's what that is, and you can move it forward. Food for the Day of the Dead is very typical. It starts to get cold around this time, and so you get your atoles, and we have ponche, and any warm drink that you can get. We are the home of tequila and mezcal, so that it is also a welcome addition to your drinks, or you just drink it by itself like it's supposed to. Yes, it is supposed to. It is meant to be drank by itself. But that's another lesson for another day. And it is just because I was just telling somebody, because we're having Day of the Day at the park in Crescent City, and I was just telling, they were totally against alcohol in the park because the parks are not for that. So I said, if I die, my altar is going to have a very good dark beer. It's going to have a very good bottle of tequila. It's going to have some very good stuff in there. So my grandkids are going to be allowed, if I was to die today, they would be allowed to handle that because that's what Mommy Lucy liked. So, it's just the way it is. They will also put a bottle of water because I do drink a lot of water. So that's the food basically goes with whatever your loved one liked. There is really no right or wrong, but most of us like the good stuff, so that goes with it. And costumes and papel picado, you see my dress is very colorful. We just decorate everything with papel picado, which used to be done by hand. Now we have machines, and we're a very colorful community and culture, so the more color we have, the more festive the environment feels and looks. That's why we have all of that going. And these are pictures of actually the lady in that side. I went to a cemetery to a Day of the Dead, and that is in the gravesite, and you do dress like that to go out in public into the cemetery to have this memorial, this celebration. If you can move it up. And the Day of the Dead, these are actual, many communities do altars in public because we do have many causes. In Mexico, I don't know if you are aware of the news, but we have feminicide. women are killed just because we are women and girls, and I know that happens everywhere. So in Mexico, we have started calling attention to this issue. So the first altar here was done by a museum, and basically on honoring all the disappeared or women that happened that year. So you can choose any cause. If you don't have a loved one or you just want to make a statement, you can make an altar for that. Close to the border, we have altars on behalf of people that died crossing the border, and which is, all the unknown. It is just a way to remember, because remember that as long as somebody remembers them, they do not die. So that is the intent. If you can, and these are just more altars. There's no rule to altars. There's one in the bottom. If you see it, that looks different. That was made with our corn is a staple in our diet for everything. So the one in the bottom is made fully with different grades of corn, different categories that we have. And it was also because our agriculture is dying, and our farm workers are having to move and cross borders because the climate change, and then these agreements between countries to sell each other things. It does benefit communities across the world, but it also causes some damage in some communities across the world. So, those are the gaps that Dana was talking about that maybe we don't see, we're not aware of it. And this is more of the Day of the Dead. The first two ones, actually, I visited Mexico last year, and it was with a family at the gravesite. I think there's a picture somewhere in there with a young lady and a child. If you move it forward, there, because it is a family. So people come as family with the children and everybody, and nobody's crying, everybody's celebrating the life of that person. In that case, they lost their grandmother. And so it was just a celebration. So after that, we went home and we ate the favorite food that she would have enjoyed. So it's like she's there with us. I did not know the lady, but I felt the love because I was able to stay there with her family. So I will stay here for the picnic in case anybody has any questions. And before breaking, I will like to extend the invitation to everybody to our first annual Day of the Dead Festival in Crescent City. We're having an altar contest. If you want to Google some ideas and enter the contest, this is an attempt to form a more inclusive community. Dana knows that we have been in talks for many years on how do we include all of the community members into the one community. Community has the word unity in it, so if we're not doing that, unity is really no community. If somebody's celebrating this on their own and then the other group comes and celebrates that on their own, you're not uniting anything, you're just fooling yourself. So this is an attempt to finally see something come and show with our new community what beautiful celebration the Day of the Dead is. It was a battle, but I'm not gonna say we won, but I think we have made progress. And that was something that I was talking to Dana before this. How do we see progress sometimes, but we don't really open our hearts and our minds to let the people that own the story tell the story. If we're going to allow some other group to come in and put on a festival of the dead, is that really inclusion? Or should we take the lead and tell our story and share these things with you, and then everybody be open to sharing? So that's my message for today. Thanks to everybody for having me, and I will stay here, and we can have questions after.
Thank you.